my wonderful panelists, I would like to ask you all to give a quick introduction, as we are a little bit behind, but also in particular, when we're talking about modular, how modular is modular in this context for you? John, let's start with you.
Yeah, hi everybody. My name is John Walsh. I'm the Director of Tech Transformation in Virgin Media Ireland. So how modular is modular? Yeah, I think it's modular is really, I think, specific to the challenges or specific to the strategy of the business you exist within, I think, and it depends on exactly what you're trying to achieve as a business. But from our perspective, modular probably is a little bit bigger than what people would have thought or would have designed in the days, and is how we would see modular. But it also maps quite closely to how TM Forum see modular in relation to the SOM architecture and so forth. Yeah, that's how I would see it.
Perfect. I mean, Louis, you want to go next?
Sure. Louis Hall, founder and CEO of Cerillion, which provides BSS and OSS solutions on a pure product basis to the broader telecoms market.
Okay. And how modular is modular?
Oh, sorry. How modular is modular? I think it's a very good question. So I think, the ODA has how many? Anyone know? 65, we think, separate modules. Is that correct, Chris? It's really good. And I think if you said, well, you should go to 65 different vendors and buy 65 different modules, yes, that's fantastic and theoretically possible, but it would no doubt come with a lot of integration, risk and effort. So I think it's important to decide where what groupings to create within those modules and where those boundaries fall. Depends also a lot, as John was saying, on the business that you're in, the context. I think we saw earlier there was a separation between some CRM layer and billing layer in the ARIA presentation, the talk presentation rather, and depending on business priorities and so on, that grouping of modules can be different, and maybe it's 4 or 5 groups of modules rather than 65 individual modules. But I think again, it's a very open question.
So a potential cluster effect. I think Nilay, if we go with you next, and then Apostolos afterwards.
Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you, guys. My name is Nilay. I'm GM of Group Architecture and IT at Spark New Zealand. Modular. So for me personally, it's not a picture or a diagram. It's a test of deployability, right? So if you think about the complex IT system, if you can change a system without having to worry about 50 other components, if it doesn't work, then actually it's monolith wearing the microservices costume. So I agree that it depends on business and what sort of changes are required for the business.
Excellent. And last but not least, Apostolos.
Yeah, hi. This is Apostolos, Chief Commercial Officer at Etiya. We're also a BSS provider, and we over the last decade we've had to do a lot of let's say modular transformations. And I to build on what Nilay said, I think the reality of how modular is most of the time dictated by what a typical customer's IT environment looks like. And the reality is that there's often not just 65, but hundreds of modules that have to coexist. And AI is accelerating the pace at which new modules need to be added. So it's as modular as the modern telco has become, I guess, in terms of complexity and granularity.
And I guess that comes back around a little bit to your point, Louis, in terms of we've got to cluster some of these modules together, really. And to move this on a little bit, though, I want to kind of think of that setup I said earlier on in terms of thinking this is not new. We've been talking about monoliths to modular for a long, long while. So, John, perhaps starting with you from the telecom perspective, what monoliths are left?
What monoliths are left? I don't think there is any monoliths left. I think there's large players, and there's large players again for specific reasons and for specific businesses, specific markets, specific challenges. And as part of the Liberty Global Group, Virgin Media, we sit side by side with our sister companies who work with some of the very large players. I think I'm not criticizing the name of our session here now, but the term monolith is almost something that it's like something we're frightened of or afraid of. But the industry needs large players. The large players bring, the very largest players bring a lot of innovation, but then, in their own way. And then, there's different levels of innovation, levels of integration that we can do across the market. But from Virgin Media Ireland, from our perspective, I think our challenge was very much, we weren't suited to the very large players. It was just economically, strategically, even what we needed to do within our market, we needed to become a little bit more modular, as we might say. And as we look through, as the previous presentation said, we did an extensive review as well. As we look through all the options on the table, Cerillion really fit well for us in our selection process. Their ability to kind of bring to the table a headless architecture that allowed us to be quite modular in what we do in the digital and what we sometimes call CSS space with companies like Pega, or even doing our own bespoke sales products. We were able to really fit Cerillion perfectly into that structure. So, I'm sure in other perspectives, some people might see Cerillion as a monolith. I don't know. In some businesses and in some markets, you guys do everything. So I think the monolith word is a little bit subjective, and we need to. It's all about being able to decide, do you as a business need to be modular in a certain way to do what you have to do commercially and to move on that. And that's how our perspective has gone. And Cerillion have really helped us, in particular with our mobile transformation, going from what we would have called the traditional monoliths. There was a big, large pan-European multi-tenant billing platform run by Amdocs. Did really well, served our business very well, but really suited that use case. We came to a local Irish model where we just needed a platform just for us, and the move to Cerillion to fit that model worked really well for us.
Just before we move on, though, what would be, say, some of those enablers then? Let's forget monolith kind of thing, but then when you're thinking from a modular perspective and you're changing that model around, what made it, from Cerillion, from other partners as part of that transformation, easier to connect into each other? Oh,
well, look, I think this is why we come back here every year. I think TM Forum, the ODA standards, it's not something we just. For years there was a lot of talk about compliance and microservices and so forth, but I think what TM Forum have done to truly bring us all together and standardize around ODA was the beginning. It wasn't just a mobile migration. We did a large fiber rollout. We're still in the middle of it, but our IT journey is over in that right now. Well, it'll never be over, but it's over from a transformation perspective. And the ODA standards really served us well there. So that was the first basis. How do we do this? How do we structure? But also the ODA standards allow us to strategize for the future and how our business, or how Liberty Global would like our business to travel. Whenever I get asked strategic questions, I can always answer them quite well because we have followed the standards. So that was a basis. Data, I think, was discussed earlier, and and data has become more relevant and more pertinent, and all the words you may use as we move into the AI age.
I think we'll come back to that.
So data is the second big topic, I think. But the ODA standards have been invaluable to us.
Yeah. And I guess whilst we're thinking, because I think if we pass on to Louis here, but just obviously, they want to be flexible, and you've kind of outlined the case for standards in that particular area. And then we want the modularity, etc., but how do we cluster that around particular capabilities? But then, what are the kind of risk factor elements? Because when we talked before, John, it was kind of, okay, yes, we've got to stitch new things together. So I guess, Louis, just from the provider point of view, how are you helping John and other customers kind of really think from, yes, we've got product-led, we're standards-led, but then what happens when there is a gap? How do you manage the risk in those particular scenarios?
Well, I think really just reiterating John's point largely that the standards make that easier. So I don't think that there's necessarily a tension between the two things, and the fact that we really have created almost a plug and, I hate to say the word cliche, but plug and play environment where the TM4 APIs and the ODA do enable us to slot things in and out relatively easily. And I think that's for businesses like us, sort of focused on one product for all. Every customer has the same software based on the standards. It helps us enormously, and I think really that's the future of this market. That telcos are not going to spend billions of dollars on this technology. for the foreseeable future. So we all have to wake up to that. And this approach, using this standards-based modularity, I think is the way forward.
But when does I guess when I think of some of the conversations I'm having with CSPs, and let's talk a little bit about AI in that context. You mentioned the importance of the data. There's also a lot of anxiety about saying, actually, for some of these new feature capabilities coming in, where are the standards? And I feel in areas like particularly AI, we kind of go, which other industry is going, where are the standards for AI? Yes, there are points, particularly if we're thinking about telecom networks, where standards are incredibly important, particularly where we need capabilities or services to run over another telco's infrastructure as well as our own. But if I'm thinking in the BSS space, my customer isn't necessarily roaming across several BSS elements from different telecom operators. Obviously, there's a wholesale model there. But where's the need for standards on AI to support those?
Yeah, sure. Well, I think there are emerging standards in AI, and the MCP server architecture that we've introduced and others have introduced is one of those, and that's essentially an open gateway for our own agents, third-party agents, to interact with our architecture, our data, our business logic, and our APIs, and to communicate back with other systems or users. And then, of course, A2A is another standard that's coming forward. And I think those emerging standards complement the already existing underlying ODA standards, and they support each other. And I think that AI should improve a standards-based product architecture, and AI should be seen as supportive of that architecture, not a prop or a workaround for a fragmented architecture. So I think those things are kind of running in twin track.
I mean, Apostolos, I'd be interested to get your viewpoint on this. In particular, when we were talking earlier in terms of how AI is changing the nature of transformation, we're kind of saying, yes, we've gone through monoliths to modular, whatever, in that sense, but then we've got to think about the different risk elements, for different maturities in areas like data as well, and how that changes the kind of focus points for a transformation. I mean, what are you seeing from yourself and your customers?
I want to bring it back to the reality of a transformation program. Somebody that's in John's shoes in any big telco or mid-sized telco, and is kind of having to constantly reinvent how they serve the business, how they serve customers. The reality is a lot of the focus is on cost, right? Especially over the last 5 years, we've seen a lot of IT, changing from, being a cost center to being an enabler of, new services. So with that reality as the sort of, the sort of key vehicle, I think, standards do play an important role, and I think they're an important checklist, but the main driver is cost. So I think this is where the TM Forum's role in, introducing ODA, in allowing through open APIs, we're a big contributor to, the open API program, of, interoperability between different types of solutions. I don't necessarily want to change an entire BSS. I need a new order manager, or I need a new catalog. And I don't have to rip and replace systems, which was the usual, I guess, antiquated now way of doing things. So I think the reality for us is that we need to be able to adapt to, to that environment, and say we need to be integrating to different billing systems or charging systems or CRMs to suit the reality of the modern, day CIO. And in order to do that, it needs to be in a very efficient way. No finger pointing between, vendors. And, ultimately we need to be able to serve the customer as quickly and efficiently as possible. So I think increasingly it's less about standards and it's more about having that common language, which, the ODA provides. And I guess the biggest blocker I see is not necessarily around standards, it's around security concerns, which are increasingly, it's the devil we don't know that keeps people up at night in terms of what does this expose me to and how do I prepare for it?
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's
I think
bigger.
in a moment, Neil, I'm going to ask you a little bit to pick up on that, because I know we've talked about your kind of two-track transformation. The security is an element in that. But Apostolos, just picking up on that in terms of when we're thinking about security in that more modular architecture, or just in terms of more in general, how is that changing for you? Because you've highlighted this is a changing moment. There's more focus, more kind of scrutiny on this, and we see that in a market like the UK, where you've got the Telecom Security Act focusing more regulatory effort on this as well as threats increasing. So what are you having to do different now that you perhaps weren't 2 years ago?
I mean, we've had to do security audits with customers, which we never had to do in the past. We have a chief security officer and a big team. So this is a big cost for us. It's also an area that we have to take very seriously because, I think cyber threats can be devastating, both for a provider as well as for, the customer. And so what it's meant for us is new levels of investment, new areas of focus, and new policies that govern the entire business and how we manage access, how we manage tooling, how we introduce new tooling into the business. So, for the most part, it's meant more investment, but it's also an area where you need to be able to prove constantly that you are ahead of the curve and that you are, compliant to a growing set of expectations from customers.
So I think hold that thought, particularly on tooling and ahead of the curve. I think we'll come down a little bit later. But first, Nilay, I just wanted to kind of expand on that theme. And how are you approaching these transformations then? How do you manage, particularly the difference of perhaps doing a transformation in customer experience versus perhaps looking at assurance or an inventory system in the OSS?
So just to clarify, we don't have a transformation program that's migrating from monolith to modular. I think that business case never stacks up. So of the last few years, we've done a lot of migration from a bigger enterprise integration bus into a modular integration architecture. And to Apostolos' point, I think those business cases has largely been out of the cost out. It's the biggest challenge, and it's going to be a big challenge as we move into the next few years. We built our own service order manager system on microservices architecture, modular architecture to support scaling of the journeys that we support across mobile and broadband business. But if we speak about the next few years, there's a huge focus on customer experience for us. And in my mind, there's a massive opportunity for our consumer business. We built the service order manager, but now if you think about customer experience, it's not only the digital stack that we've got, your CMS, TAM, the content system, but it's also beyond that, your BSS system. And more I think about the consumer stack, I think we want to make sure that we build that headless, composable, omnichannel experience. Because, I think customer doesn't care. Consumer customer, they want to click a button and make sure things happen at the back of it, right? So CRM is not a system in my mind. CRM is a capability as we move into the future architecture. Now, it doesn't mean that we don't have challenges. There's migrating off the current CRM system that we use is a massive challenge. We've got a number of catalog systems across billing, your order manager, the digital experience, to support products to go live to market. So that becomes a huge focus. But what we are thinking about now is AI being the biggest opportunity for us to help us migrate and focus on areas where there's opportunity. For example, migrating customer records, probably not so much an opportunity so long as there's a headless API that's available to support those transactions going forward. So focus is probably more on order journeys for your customer service. How do you lift and shift those capabilities out of CRM system and build this omnichannel experience? So we are at the moment, we've done some pilots on AI. We could build an app for one of the MVNO that we have under Spark in under a month. Security remains a concern. We know that. But now we are trying to scale those pilots and building a fast lane with the right guardrails and architecture support in place and security in place so that we can build that composable architecture through the fast lane model. So there's a huge focus on the harness, the skills. We partnered with Palo Alto to provide us support across the SCLC, starting from building the solution to testing to supporting the operations going forward as well. We're focusing on observability. We want to make sure that we're not only building new features, but we also be able to close the loop as we identify issues in the future as well. So there is a huge focus on leveraging AI. So we're not seeing it as a tool, but we're seeing it as a culture of different way of doing things as we go forward and fast tracking some of the transformation.
So just on that, again, you mentioned that kind of not seeing it just as a pure tool. So where has it been really of benefit, and where have you kind of said maybe we'll look at it again in a year's time or so?
Say it again, Chris.
Where has AI actually proven it's a real benefit versus where is it maybe not?
So, in my opinion, and some of the pilots we've done, digital space, building front end, building an app, there's well mature capabilities through any LLM models that you can pick. Doesn't have to be Opus. It could be any model you could use. I think that will deliver the right outcome. So LLMs are available to churn the front end code. Migration on some of the cases where we had smaller modules of application, you can easily reverse engineer those open application and migrate to the modern application with the right skills and specs. I think the biggest challenge is in the data migration. So like heavy lifting, like customer migration. So migrating from one CRM system to another CRM system, that comes with its own risk. So we call them critical infrastructure projects. Those are not something that we're going to run on the fast lane. We still run some of the slow lane projects to make sure that we can migrate those critical infrastructure onto modern application. Another challenging area I personally find is catalog. We've got a number of catalogs across system. We've got ambition of centralizing those catalog into a single catalog system that is headless and supports across your CX, the retail experience, as well as the backend system. Now, as you guys all know, that every catalog system is different. The way it models rules are different. There's probably thousands, if not more, rules in those systems as well. So consolidating those rules into different language per se, and migrating into single system, it's massively challenged. So we've done some migration across catalog from mobile, and I would not be revisiting my decision on doing another catalog migration.
Excellent, thank you. I think just if we migrate the mics a little bit down towards this end of the panel, I just want to pick up then. So, John, you've heard a little bit about Nilay's experience and kind of how he splits out fast lane and slow lane or kind of more intensive. Is that a similar thing?
Yeah, very similar, very similar. I think we all live similar challenges. So, yeah, we've been in that fast lane, slow lane model for a while. I just mentioned at the start how we worked on pulling a lot of the maybe interaction management, case management, customer experience logic out of our supposed monolithic day one. So, and all of those workflows and journeys have always been in our fast lane for a period of time now. And while that gave us the air cover then for a number of years to start looking at our billing platforms, our SOM platforms, order management platforms, inventories, all that world, and assurance. So that's been a model we've been in for a while now, and we've had the ability to keep a stable, fast platform for almost 5-6 years now. Very lot of stability for our contact center. Very little training really that had to be changed. Allows them to focus in. While being able to change the billing systems and so forth. So that's been good. I think just to touch on Nilay's point, I think what we're learning with AI, some of the use cases we're learning with AI now is some of the things we're being able to put into the fast lane that we never had in the fast lane before, is building the assurance tools and products, and that sometimes we would have leaned on our BI or analytics teams to, for instance, when we built some customer journey logic or maybe chatbots and so forth to see are we deflecting in the contact center, became a really difficult task for some of our analytics and billing and our BI teams to properly data model. Did the customer arrive on the website? Did they land? Did we actually take a duplicate call? Sometimes you think that's going to be very easy, but when you have multiple systems, multiple channels, very difficult. The beauty of AI is the ability to combine that data together and build the analysis of that, of that journey and of that experience quickly is amazing. Then if you take it deeper in the stack, the ability to build assurance between, for instance, we just did our mobile transformation where we split up a large Amdocs environment between billing, OCS, a roaming partner. We transformed all them last year, and we were able to build a full assurance platform to see where we had leakage in the CDRs, in the roaming. We'd all that built in 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Almost to the point now we're wondering if this is going to be our full revenue assurance product compared to the products we had before.
Yeah.
So there are tools and products now moving into the fast lane that were never in there before. And I think the point of building those assurance tools, building those assurance platforms early, quickly, to have them almost like a firewall to all your change and your replacement is now probably the key strategy on our behalf. Because we have a lot of people, including within our business, and people might have called it shadow IT, but now it's shadow agent creation or whatever, and we're not going to stop it, people. It's not going to stop. So I think what we need to do is whatever is going to happen in that world, or whatever we can try and stop, or whatever we manage ourselves, we need to build what we call either migration assurance or maybe modular assurance across our platforms, but we can do it quickly with AI. And that makes us probably sleep a lot easier.
Yeah. And I think it actually goes back a little bit to what we were hearing from Laura and previous ones of you need to bring the organisation with you in terms of that culture change, and the assurance is the window in to do that.
Yeah. Like the one thing I'll just touch on AI is I think we're all talking about AI now. The threshold for us breaking the business with transformation because of AI now as well is gone down even further.
Yeah.
So we now have to build tools and products that, as we talk about doing billing migrations or changes, because they're now saying to us, well, you can build these products in 2 weeks, and how come then you can just break my billing system? And so it brings its own pressures back on us as well, I think, at the moment. But so yeah, bringing the business and bringing our stakeholders on that journey with us, but also using AI to protect them and stand up to those thresholds is important.
On that speed, Nilay mentioned about bringing Palo Alto in as a kind of, again, security partner to help when thinking on that speed and how do they manage. Do you have something similar?
Yeah, no, we've great partners as well. I'm not sure we have Palo Alto, but we have great partners in Infosys. Infosys has been a big partner for ours for a period of time, and couple them with all of our platform partners like Cerillion, Pega. We use Sienna Blue Planet, and we use various security partners. Then we obviously lean a lot on our Liberty Global practices as well, who would have various partners. So yeah, you can't do this alone. You can, even though AI might make you feel like you could do it alone sometime with your intern, you just can't. Yeah. We still go back to the old days of understanding what you're talking about. You still need architects on the end of all of those AI prompts and all those AI generation tools. You still need people who know what they're talking about. So your partners and their experience is critical. It's critical.
Excellent. So we've got only a couple of minutes left, so a word left to also Louis and Apostolos before we wrap up. So Apostolos, if you want to grab the other mic, and then Louis, I'll ask you whilst that's going on. So just in terms of your response, and both Nilay and John have highlighted that need around expertise, that need, the kind of lower threshold for breaking the business. I mean, Louis, in your case for Cerillion, how are you thinking about the tools for security, which Apostolos mentioned earlier as well, that you're investing in?
So do we mean the AI tools that we're... Yeah, I mean, I think that, power, all power is dangerous to an extent. And of course, as John said, the tools are only as good as the prompts that are written into them. And for me, the tools are just another level of abstraction, another level of programming language, if you like, albeit an intelligent one. But I think you have to have guardrails around these tools and be very careful about how you release them. And I think that one of the points I would make is that whilst we've done some great work in building some great tools, we are seeing amongst the telco community very slow take up on letting them loose on their platforms and critically on their data and their customers. So I think there's still a way to go before we're seeing real benefits from which will come, but I think we're a long way from seeing the real benefits of those tools. But let's set aside the security issues. Sorry.
Apostolos, would you agree with that assessment, or are you seeing anything?
Yeah, no. I mean, one observation in hearing both both John and Nilay talk about their transformation journeys. I think for us that have been around this industry for a while, there is a full circle kind of moment going on, right? Because we are back to lots of customers building their own tools, right? Whether it's an order manager or whether it's CRM functionalities. And we're back to the re-emergence of system integrators like Infosys, that disappeared for a while and now back center stage, because the complexity is now, getting bigger and bigger. And I think this build-up of systems, especially with AI, is going to make matters much worse, because operators are having to respond to very changing, needs and new requirements and new security concerns. So there is a build-up of systems that's going on that will be complex to manage.
Excellent. Thank you all very much for a wonderful panel. Ladies and gentlemen, please, can you give them a big round of applause? Thank you all.